All right, what's going on, guys? I am Kadarius Washington, and this is the Sports Rundown. And folks, we've made it to the WNBA Finals. Boy, oh boy, has this season gone by fast. And of course, Game 1 tips off tonight between the 4-seeded Phoenix Mercury and the 2-seeded Las Vegas Aces. Yep, just like how we all drew it up. It's not like some of us have been out here since the start of May pushing for a Liberty Lynx final and has since had to take that prediction and throw it in the trash. But nevertheless, here we are. And remember, folks, this is the first time that the WNBA Finals is a best 4 out of 7 series, and this thing is being billed as the Battle of the Desert or the Showdown of the Desert or whatever you want to call it. But this is a matchup of two very unlikely stories. Starting with the Las Vegas Aces, this was an Aces team that went through some roster turnover in the offseason, of course, saying goodbye to Kelsey Plum, Alicia Clark, Tiffany Hayes, and of course losing Candace Parker to retirement. And then they bring in Jewel Lloyd after her long tenure in Seattle. And this was an Aces team that was struggling out of the gate to start the year. Despite Asia Wilson and Jackie Young having all-star seasons, the rest of this team was underperforming, getting blown out left and right, and then they traded for Nalissa Smith from the Dallas Wings, which ultimately worked out huge for them, especially on the defensive end. And at the end of July, start of August, this team was just barely hanging on to the 8th seed, and there were questions of whether or not this team was even going to make the playoffs. And then they go out and get embarrassed by the Minnesota Lynx on national television. And after that, the only thing the Aces did was close the regular season on an absurd 16-game win streak and go from the 8th seed at the start of August to the 2 seed in the playoff standings. And Asia Wilson, who somehow wasn't even in the MVP conversation in the first half of the season, walked that 4th MVP down. And now a team who was 2 games below 500 at one point of the season is now competing for their 3rd championship in the last 4 years. And of course, they're in this position by defeating the Seattle Storm in 3 in the first round, a team who they have owned in the postseason since Seattle swept them in the finals in 2020. And then the Aces have since beat Seattle in the postseason all 3 times that they faced each other in the last 4 years, and that, of course, cost Noelle Quinn her job. And then they defeated the Indiana Fever in 5 in the semifinals, a Fever team who honestly had no business going on the run that they did. I mean, the Fever were absolutely destroyed by season-ending injuries and had a whole bunch of players on hardship contracts. But they came in as a 6th seed. They knocked off the 3-seeded Atlanta Dream, who I thought was going to be a title contender, in a Game 3 heartbreaker, and took the Aces, of course, to overtime in a winner-take-all Game 5 in the semis. But the Aces just overpowered Indiana, and now the Aces are back in the finals. And as for the Phoenix Mercury, this was a team that came into the season with a lot of questions as they assembled nearly a completely different roster than last year, with the only players who actually returned from last year's roster were Kalia Copper and Natasha Mack. This was a team who, mind you, had 0 draft picks in this past WNBA draft, and then they go and they pick up Alyssa Thomas and Satu Sabali as part of the biggest trade in the history of the league this past offseason. And there were, of course, questions about chemistry and depth and injury history and other things. And I'll be honest with you folks, when I made my season predictions in May, I didn't even pick this team to make the playoffs. I thought they would be a 9th seed, just on the outside looking in. But coming into the start of the season, all they did was win, keep winning and kept on finding different ways to win. And this was a Phoenix team that was a 2 seed in the standings at one point in the season. And their captain and AT was setting just about every triple-double record known to the WNBA world, and then they go and they pick up DeWanna Bonner, who won previously 2 championships with the franchise, and now that looks like the biggest signing of the midseason, and now this team is back in the WNBA Finals for the first time since 2021, with a chance to join the Minnesota Lynx and the Seattle Storm for most championships in WNBA history with 4. And they're in this position by taking out both of the teams who were in the finals last year, if you can believe that. They defeated the previous champion, New York Liberty, in 3 in the first round, which ultimately spelled the end of Sandy Brondello in New York, and of course defeated the Minnesota Lynx in 4 in the semifinals, and a Lynx team that had a couple of major injuries, no Dejanay Carrington because of a foot injury before the series, and of course we know the story with Nafisa Collier's ankle injury at the end of Game 3, coupled with Cheryl Reeve getting suspended for Game 4 after blasting the officiating after that game. But nevertheless, looking at this matchup at hand, the Mercury and Aces faced off 4 times in the regular season, and the Aces won 3 of those meetings. And of course, the sole win for the Mercury was when the two first faced off this year on June 15th in Vegas. 76-70 was the final score, albeit Asia Wilson didn't play in that game as she was dealing with a concussion, but then they faced off next on June 29th, which the Aces won that matchup 84-81 in Phoenix, and then they faced off again on August 15th. The Aces again won 86-83 in Phoenix, and then they faced off on the 21st, which Vegas once again won 83-61. And listen, both of these teams have a lot of finals and championship experience. Out of the 23 combined players on both rosters, 12 of them have WNBA Finals experience. And when you're considering these two rosters, when you look at the starting pieces, you have to give the slight edge to the Aces. But when it comes down to the bench, you got to give the edge to the Mercury. And I think this is going to be a matchup that comes down to who's deeper and who has the better bench. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick the Phoenix Mercury to win this series in 6. For a couple of other reasons as well, Alyssa Thomas in her career has always been the bridesmaid, but never the bride when it comes to both MVPs and championships. Of course, lost out to Asia Wilson 3 times, Brianna Stewart in 2023, and as far as the championship is concerned, she's made 2 finals appearances with the Connecticut Sun, where they lost to that great Washington Mystics team in 2019, and of course the Las Vegas Aces in 2022, and I think she's finally due to break through and win a championship. Plus, I really like Phoenix's championship experience that they have with DeWanna Bonner and Sammy Whitcomb and Kalia Copper, who, mind you, Ka won Finals MVP in 2021 with the Chicago Sky. And also, like I mentioned, this is going to be a matchup that comes down to the benches and who the deeper, more talented bench is. And y'all already know I love depth in matchups like this, and I just have to give the edge to Phoenix. And if DeWanna Bonner and Sammy Whitcomb get hot, that is going to cause problems for the Las Vegas Aces. And plus, it would make a nice sports story too, because this is a team who lost their all-time great franchise player in retirement this past offseason in Diana Taurasi, and of course they didn't bring back Brittany Griner. And the only two The only two players, as I just mentioned, who were on the roster last year were Ka and Natasha Mack. And it would make a really nice story for a team who we thought was going to be in a rebuild, a team who we had questions about and didn't know how this thing would work, would just go on and win this whole thing. Plus, the Las Vegas Aces are a team, and this has been an issue all season with them. The Las Vegas Aces are a team that I feel is just too reliant on Asia Wilson and Jackie Young to produce at high levels. And if Asia has an off night, the Aces are in trouble. But if AT has an off night, the next player can step up and win it. And I think that's going to be the difference, and that's what we've seen all season long from these two teams. And I think the Mercury just have more ways that they can beat you than the Aces do. So I'm officially picking the Phoenix Mercury to win this thing in 6. And one more prediction. This has nothing to do with the game. But when Kathy Engelbert goes out and presents the Commissioner's Trophy once this series is over, whether it's going to be in Phoenix or whether it's going to be in Vegas, those fans are going to boo her to high glory. Watch what I tell you. Like, comment, subscribe, click that notification bell to be notified of when I post again, and also follow me on Twitter and on Bluesky at CW Talk Sports. That's CWTALKS Sports, and I will see y'all the next time. Peace.